You would think that would be something that people just know, but the thing is that people have bad philosophies. I would say the philosophy of Darwinism is a bad philosophy. It is not dog eat dog out there. Nature is in balance. Like it has to be, or it would eat itself dry. There is not wolves going
100%.
to war with each other. I mean, they fight each other, sure, but they don't be killing like that. They're not eating everything.
100%.
Like
100%. Yeah, one of my favorite stories from Daniel Quinn, one of his books, he's talking about lions and antelopes. And he's like, look at the way lions kill antelopes, right? I'm not saying he's like I'm not saying that there was never murders across the, I'm not saying members of this tribe never killed. There were small skirmishes, there were small tribal battles, but guess what never happened? There was never a tribe that wiped out another tribe because they didn't live the way they wanted them to live. And that's the
right,
same thing with antelopes and tigers and lions. Is lions will eat the antelope, sure, but they eat the antelope because they're hungry. They don't eat the antelope because they hate antelope. That's
yeah,
hilarious. They keep the antelope alive because they need to feed. They need to. In other tribes back in the day, they would keep other tribes alive because that's diversity. You're going to intermarry with them. You don't. There are benefits to interacting with other tribes too for commerce reasons, et cetera, et cetera. But it was never exterminate them because they don't live the way we live. That only one tribe did that, and they, obviously we're still here. So
I mean, amen on that one, I guess. But I think it comes down to the fact that we have something that most animals do not, which is that ego that takes things personally. Like, lions don't take it personally. I'm sure the antelopes don't take it personally. I mean, it's still trauma. I'm sure antelope always going to be scared of a lion after he sees his brother get eaten. Like, I mean, that's for sure. But I don't think the antelopes like that lion had a personal vendetta against. I'm gonna fuck these lions up in like 3 years after I start working out. Like,
yeah,
like it just doesn't happen that way because it's true. It's not personal. And I think also we can still extend that to the situation that we're in, where like our government, what's happening to us is happening because we allow it. It's not personal. We're just being robbed. It's not personal. We're just being abused. Why? Because we
what do
haven't
you
told
think
them
about
stop.
human nature?
Mhm. What do I think
Human,
about it?
yeah, like human nature. Is it like because this kind of ties to what we're talking about, right? Like, is it natural to be a helper? Because that's actually this is really a root thing within like academic intellectual debate, right? Is human nature a lot? Hobbes, neo Hobbesian still dominates most of academia intellectuals, and Hobbes is the one that said, life is short, nasty, brutish, blah blah. So they say human nature is inherently selfish, dog eat dog, like what you're talking about. So yeah, asking like, what do you think of human nature really gets at what we're talking about here. And there's another story that I have, but I want to hear your answer first.
Well, I'll talk to Hobbes and then I'll tell you my answer. The reason why we have philosophers in academia that think that way is because they're scared people. They can't. They feel like that's
Scarcity mindset.
that's
Scarcity mindset versus
their experience.
abundancy mindset.
It's their no, it's their experience of the world though. It is. Like I mean, as a teacher, most
True.
people, I mean, they're not going teachers don't go out there and fight diversity. They're not going out there and fighting adversity like that. They sit in a book. They're studying. They don't go out and lift rocks and farm and do all that. I'm not saying that there are not farmers that are teachers, but for the most part, the people who are setting the rules are not me and you. They're not commoners. They're not people that had to work hard. They're people that have lived in a book. And on top of that, they're scared. So yes, they're gonna think the world is dog eat dog. Yes, they're gonna say that the survival of the fittest because they were born into a situation where they were the fittest, and everyone else, you must now survive me. And whether they know it or not, it's a true reflection on themselves. Now, I think that personally, what I believe the human experience is about, or like I guess the human mindset. Can you rephrase the question for me one more time just to make sure?
How would you describe human nature? Like, are we
Yes,
naturally egalitarian or are we naturally egotistic? Are we naturally communal,
I think
tribal? How would you explain that?
I think that we're inherently a communication based community creatures. Because when we're young, what do? We're constantly looking to our elders on to what is happening, what is going on. And the strongest of us have the most family support. Like when you have a good family support, you feel like you understand at least a lot more than someone who didn't have support on what's going on in the world around you and where is my place within this chaos that is, I mean, the living chaos. We'll call it living chaos 'cause it's not really chaos. It's just bigger than we can comprehend. Where do we fit in on this? I think that the reason I mean, if you just look at kids, like they're questioning their reality. They're questioning the world around them. They're experimenting constantly, like like their touch, taste, sound. They're constantly absorbing information, and then once they have absorbed enough information and they're able to communicate with the world, then they've begun that test of like what is real and what is not real, what is real, what is not real, and that that being that questioning mind. I think that is our original nature. It gets beat out of us when we go to school because we're no longer able to test and see for ourselves what's actually going on. It's being told to us. And when that happens, and it creates a docile effect. Not everyone can go into that. There are certain people that are rebellious. That nature never goes away. But I think our nature is the philosopher. I think ultimately we're here. We're the ears, eyes, nose and mouth of Gaia. And like we are on this super organism that's far more complex than we can understand, but we have a very special role. We have a role that helps that has the potential to help everything else on this planet. We can create food. We can organize in ways. We can change. We can literally terraform Earth. And I'm not saying that we have to take it out of balance in any format. Actually, I think that's the thing. There should be food growing everywhere. And we could feed everybody. The thing is, on top of that, like if we were just the ones planting the seeds, we would still be in harmony. Even if we never went out and fed an animal to at all, just planting the
You know?
tree is
But I think
enough
one of
to
the
change the whole thing.
barriers to that is the system that we've set up
Yeah,
for ourselves, where you have to go to work and pay rent, and uh, you don't have, you don't literally don't have the time to be able to cultivate. I mean, I have a garden, um, and I'm trying to get better at it, but not everybody does. And then even with me, like I can't spend all my time cultivating the way I kind of wish I could because I have to
mhm,
work and pay rent and or pay my mortgage.
yep,
Um, but to get back to the human nature thing, um, I think communication is a big part of it. The way that we
yeah,
communicate to each other has a lot to do with what I'm about to say. So I've been reading a lot of books that are kind of all in the same category: Ishmael, the Ishmael trilogy, and then Christopher Ryan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He wrote a book called Sex at Dawn, which really kind of examines human relationships, especially like sexual relationships. Um, and again, he's kind of in the same mindset as me as far as prehistoric person, how we're built biologically, how we live anthropologically, culturally, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that's a good book. I'll recommend that. I won't go too far into that. Sex at Dawn, really good one. But he wrote a more recent one called Civilized to Death, and it's kind of an expansion on that. Sex at Dawn was a little bit more focused on relationships, sex, male and female relationship, etc. Whereas Civilized to Death kind of takes that very zoomed in uh, perspective and philosophy that he kind of espouses in Sex at Dawn and zooms out and shows how civilization itself is the problem, and that hunter gatherers lived in balance, in harmony with Gaia, like you're talking about. 99.7% of human history. 99.7% of human history.
yeah.
No problems. No problems. We lived just as in harmony with the earth as a deer, a rattlesnake, a rabbit, a blue whale, you name it. And people can say, "Oh, well, that was primitive." Okay, well, there's a lot of ancient technologies and ancient artifacts that are being discovered now too. So questionable as well. And he also takes all of the civilized people's arguments and breaks them down as far as lifespan. A lot of the things that we hear about prehistoric people, there might be truth to them, right? And that's why they're able to get. That's why these untruths have survived so long. But he dissects them, right? Like the lifespan thing. Yes, infant mortality was higher, so yes, the average lifespan gets brought down a lot because you have so many more people dying at before 1 year old. But if you take out the infants that were dying in prehistory and you only include people who made it past 5 years old, the average lifespan is nearly the same
Mhm. Mhm.
as today, right?
Yeah.
And but we have modern technology and we're civilized, blah blah blah, right? You know, and he breaks down all of them. But one of the ones that he really broke down was human nature, and the analogy that he told, and I love this analogy, is did you know that grasshoppers and locusts are the same species?
Mhm. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Grasshoppers and locusts are the same species. What makes the difference, what makes one a grasshopper versus a locust is the environment, the ecology the situation, the circumstance, the environment that it's put in. So if you're put in a very stressful situation, very stressful environment, very little food, you don't really even have enough sustenance to get by unless you gang up with some other low lives and go steal and and wreck their crops, you know, as the
Yeah.
locusts do. That's the only way to survive. And you got to do what you got to do. And that because civilization has put us in very fucked up situations, it justifies these people saying, "Oh, human nature is bad, and selfish, blah blah blah." Human nature is bad, selfish, etc., because we've created an environment that encourages people to act in that way.
Mhm.
But for 99.7% of human existence, which they like to ignore and they call prehistory as if it's not history, like
Yeah.
fish can live in pre-water, right? Uh, but it's history, right? They just call it prehistory because it's not the history they want us to know about.
Mhm.
99.7% of human existence, we were grasshoppers,
Yeah.
lived at peace, didn't destroy the earth, didn't create genocidal warfare. Sure, grasshoppers get eaten. Sure, grasshoppers eat, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah. When do
And
you
and
think?
I see human nature being the same way. I see humans being the same way. We can be grasshoppers when
Mhm.
we're living tribally, when we're when we have a mutual trust among us. But when we're living in the civilized manner, civilized, it's all out war, man. It becomes dog eat dog. We've created that for ourselves in a lot of ways. It's not natural. We are in agreement on that. But I think we've kind of, in a lot of ways, made these disheartening and disempowering philosophies. We've made them true through our actions in a lot of ways, and they're not there. It doesn't mean they're ultimately true. There's something deeper that these conversations are getting at, right?
Yeah.
But there is something to what they're saying because they've created it by creating such a shitty environment where people are encouraged to act in ways that are against their nature, in
Yeah.
my opinion, against their nature, but they use those same behaviors to say that is human nature. And that's why
Yeah.
we need to design the system like this.
It's a circular system. The crazies took over the insane asylum and then made everyone else more crazy, and they're like, "Well, because you're crazy, more rules." And
Yep.
that's the downward spiral. I'm not sure when it started. I'm not sure.
You
I
know the
think
story of Cain and Abel, right?
yes, yes. Um,
So you know how the Christians try to say like, "Oh, that was God testing us."
uh,
That's not the real. That's not what. No, the real history behind that story is that it was the stories told by the nomadic herders, and it was trying to tell the other nomadic herders. It was trying to get this oral story out to say that God is on our side and that we are going to win in the end. And that's why the story makes no sense to the farmers because that's their only out is God was testing us. God wasn't testing you. You're the fucked up one. You're Cain.
when it comes to the
Cain
stories of
is still killing Abel. Cain is still killing Abel to this day. That's a metaphorical story. That's the farmers killing the herders and the nomadic shepherds and foragers. That's what that
Mm.
is.
I mean, well said. I mean, that analogy does line up. Like metaphorically, it does.